All right, it looks like we have everybody. And it is 6:30, so we will go ahead and get started. I will call the meeting to order. Thank you for joining us for our April 19th regular meeting of the Ames Community School District Board of Directors. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Bankin. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. And Director Beerbaum, will you please read our purpose statement?
The Ames Community School District commits to equity and access that empowers every individual to reach their full personal and educational potential.
Thank you. We will start with our COVID-19 update as our first agenda item, and I will turn this over to Superintendent Reisner.
And I'll turn it over to Dr. Arnold.
And I will give the report. Here is our update on the COVID status in our building and as well as our local and school metrics. Our first slide shows the COVID positives and quarantines in the schools. Today we have 3 students positive across the district and 8 quarantining due to being identified as close contacts. Good news is we're trending down in the positives and quarantines after we had that little bump up after spring break, which you can see in the graphs below. We currently have 1 staff member positive for COVID-19 and 0 quarantining due to close contact and no one pending a test result. And again, just to highlight, you can see the patterns that in the data below on the graphs, and that we are coming down on these student positives and quarantines, which is good news. Our next slide shows our Story County metrics. Our Story County 14-day average new daily case rate is now 13.8. And that also appears to be recovering after that slight spring break bump. You can see that detailed on the graph on the left, as well as that trend you can see in the trend for the year on the right. Our 14-day positivity is 4.2 and our 7-day positivity is 3.9, which is a slight decrease from our last meeting. Over the past 7 days, 65% of the positive cases are in the 18 to 29-year-old age group, and 1% of the cases are in people under 18 years old. The next slide shows our school absence metrics. Today's 5-day average student and staff absence rates are shown in the table on the top. And we've continued to stay well below the 10% absence rate and have been fairly consistent, as you see in the graph below. And then our final slide is the update of our COVID vaccine clinic status. We held a total of 10 vaccination clinics, 5 first dose and 5 second dose clinics. Pfizer was given at all of our clinics. I do have a resource list for staff who are still interested in getting their vaccine but may not have been able to do so, or staff can directly schedule through Story County Public Health. On the table on the right, you can see our current vaccination rate by building and overall for the district. As predicted, the percent vaccinated ranges from about 67 to 82%, and one with overall 76% for the district in total. One limitation to this data is that it is based upon either those who are vaccinated through one of our clinics or who have communicated with me that they were vaccinated elsewhere. We may have staff that have been vaccinated elsewhere and haven't communicated this yet to me, or may have chose not to get vaccinated for religious health, personal reasons, or due to having COVID within the past 90 days or a physician recommendation. And for that local update, 23.8% of Story County residents are considered fully vaccinated. And when you exclude those under 18 years old, that represents 28% of the Story County population as fully vaccinated. And that ends the update. What questions can I answer?
I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Gina. Nope, that's fine.
I was just wondering, for next year with teachers, I know we get new teachers every year due to retirement or whatever, but Are we going to offer the vaccine to the new teachers as well? What's
So-
going to be the procedure for that?
As of now, when we're looking, when we hire new teachers, to find out if that is something that they do need, if they're they may have gotten that from a previous district, or if they're new to teaching, or new to the area and haven't been able to get a vaccine. If we have enough, we will offer. We've talked about offering a clinic at the district. If it's a smaller number, we will get them hooked up directly through Story County Public Health. So it's really going to depend on the total number. Whether or not we do an actual clinic at the district office, or if we arrange for them to get them vaccinated through Story County Public Health.
Okay, thank you.
Has the CDC or anybody put out any basic guidance on what level of vaccination you want in a building or anything? I mean, I've seen herd immunity numbers anywhere from like 60 to 80%. And it's really a question just to give kind of parents peace of mind. It seems like we're at a really high rate that probably keeps the schools about as safe as we're going to get, right? Or what's your opinion on that?
I was on a CDC call earlier today, and they still don't have a specific number for what they're considering appropriate herd immunity for COVID. Some of that is related to the new variants that are out there. But I would, in general reference, anything over 75 is good, 75 to 90, depending on the particular disease or virus. So I think we're doing well. And again, I think this may even be a slight underrepresentation of our vaccination status, because I do believe there are some staff that may have gotten vaccinated elsewhere, or may choose now to get vaccinated as this progresses. And we've seen that in healthcare as well, as they kind of, once people see that everyone seems to still be doing okay, then they may change their mind and choose to get vaccinated at a later date. So this is kind of the baseline bottom of where we could be. So I do think it looks really, really good for the district. And it was a great opportunity that we were able to get this many people vaccinated, in a fairly quick manner.
Yeah, no, thank you for all the hard work. I mean, when I look at these numbers and based on the stuff you said, I would say we're probably sitting at around 80% vaccinated or safe, maybe more, which is awesome. Way to go. Thank you for that, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Dr. Arnold, do you have any sense on when there would be a vaccine available to minors, children under 16?
So from what I've heard, that the vaccine manufacturers, Pfizer specifically, has applied for EUA status in that 12 to 16-year-old group. So that next age chunk going down, that probably, within the next couple months. I think maybe midsummer is last I've heard. That date keeps moving around a little bit. For those under 12, I think we're probably not looking until late fall or early 2022 at this point. Now, things, of course, as we've all seen with COVID and with vaccines, change fairly quickly too. But that's at least what the most recent information is that I've heard on that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Dr. Arnold? All right, we will move on to our remote campus enrollment update. And is that Christy Mixdorf?
It is. This will probably look very familiar to each of you. We've been looking at this quite a bit this year. So what you'll see here in the first table is our current numbers. The two columns there in orange represent our building-based enrollment. The first column in orange will be the number of students, and the second represents the percentage of students in that building. And then the two columns there in gray on the right is our remote campus student enrollment numbers and the percentage. We saw an increase in building-based enrollment in every building. Our highest building was Fellows, followed closely by the middle school. Fellows had about a 10% increase. Most buildings saw anywhere from 3 to 5% increase there. Do you have any questions?
Are the buildings that are having those bigger spikes, are they having any sort of staffing issues due to now larger class sizes that might be unbalanced due to still some people in remote, or how are we doing as far as that part of it?
Yeah, so we have 6 students who we were not able to place in their home building due to on-site enrollment numbers. And we have 4 sections on site that are sitting at 26. But most classroom or sections are sitting well below that at the elementary. And then the way that we have staffed the middle school and high school, they're serving both campuses. And so as they've looked at balancing their classrooms out, we didn't see a significant change.
So are
And then
there,
if I remember right, so these numbers are what we will see through the end of the year, correct? And
Yes.
just as a reminder, I mean, this is what it is.
With the exception of, we do have students available to go back to remote campus at any time throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
And we move maybe 3 to 5 students a week still into that remote campus, or kind of have been averaging that still.
I think you said that there was more adjustments at the middle school based on the impact of more kids coming in. I thought that's what I heard you say. So please correct me if I did.
We didn't, no, not an impact in staffing, because staff are serving both remote campus. So there wasn't an adjustment in rosters there, and we were able to bring them back in without. It was more at the elementary where we were balancing the on-site class sizes with the students that were wanting to come back.
Okay, so because at the middle school, they're balancing in-person and remote students, it just would shift how many they had in each of those models within their classroom.
Yes, and when we looked at rosters heavily in the shift from first semester to second semester, that a lot of that balancing happened. So teachers are serving the same roster size, whether they're in remote campus or not. Does that make sense? So a teacher might have 40 students, whether some of them are in remote campus or on site, that balancing happened at semester.
Okay.
Anything else for Director Mixdorf? All right. We can move on to our next agenda item, which is I'm sorry. First, I need to ask if there are any public comments on the COVID-19 update, and I will read our statement on public comments. If I can get it pulled up here. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. So if there are any members of the public who would like to speak just on the COVID-19 update right now, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing no hands raised, I will move on to our discussion items, and we will start with our board committee update. First, the policy committee. The policy committee did meet again last week to review the policy we had discussed at the previous meeting, and that policy, along with other policies, are on our policies. Those will be on our action items. Are there any questions on policy committee?
And just for the person, just for Eric, I think you're controlling the screen. We have started to list the committee meetings in green, so you can click on the actual, yep, item right there.
Perfect.
Just as a reminder. Yep.
All right, so we will hear, or we will have action on those policies shortly. And then we have Teaching and Learning Committee update.
The Teaching and Learning Committee met April 14th. We talked about several things. So we talked about learning recovery opportunities. So we started with summer school update. This program will be offered on site and virtually. Currently, the enrollment for this program is 206 students from K through 8 were invited. 98 have signed for in-person, 8 virtual, and for our tutoring program, who's it's offered through AmeriCorps, it is 77, which is one-to-one tutoring. 77 students were invited and 8 have enrolled. The locations would be Meeker and Sawyer, and 2 EL teachers will be for the morning block for focusing on K and K through 2nd. For the high school, it's the High School Summer Academy, and it will have morning and afternoon programming to accommodate students' scheduling. Currently, 315 students were invited, but at the time that we met, we did not have those numbers because the enrollment period was still open. The focus for 9th and 10th grade will be executive functioning skills and credit recovery. For 11th and 12th, the focus will be credit recovery. And the full update on that program will be presented to the board May 3rd. And it will come as an informational item. And our second thing we talked about was after school intervention program. This is it's a very early stages of planning. So it's so basically it will support students in reading and math, and ideally will be small groups. And after this first runabout goes through, the idea perhaps will be to have it implemented 3 times a year. So we're not waiting till the end of the year to do the recovery, but we can do interventions throughout the year. So we'll definitely hear more about that as we go into the program. The third piece that we talked about was the update on social emotional learning. And there is a task force working on this implementation. And for the board, the social emotional learning, also called SEL, has 5 learning competencies, and there's self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making. Those are 5 of the competencies that the task force is working on. And there are several next steps. They go from material review, then possibly in June, the recommendation will be coming to the board, and it's in the works August 2022, perhaps for the full implementation. So that's for that. We also talked about the remote campus for next year. That basically we actually didn't talk about it. We just talked about the numbers, but those numbers were not available. So when those numbers are available, they will come back and they will inform us what those numbers are. I know I covered a lot because we did cover a lot in a very short amount of time, but I think I would like to ask the board, just because we covered the teaching and learning covers a lot of stuff, lots of things. I wonder if there's any questions or if there's anything that the board thinks that it would be pertinent for us to address as a teaching and learning committee. So I'm just wondering if anybody has any ideas.
I have a quick question though, and I'm sorry if I should know this, but I was noting the numbers, and you talked about students being invited versus students who had accepted, and particularly around summer school, you know, it's not even 50% of the students who have accepted. Is the window still open? Will there be further outreach? And I guess the first question I should have asked is, what is the criteria for someone to be invited? What are you looking for?
That's a great question. And Christy, since you're still in the call, would you mind answering the questions that Director Benkin presented?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Benkin. The first answer is yes, it's still open. We have done some outreach through the buildings, making phone calls. We're doing an online registration. And so that's different for us this year. And so we wanted to follow up. We started out with 68 students responding or families responding. We're now up to, I think, 116 as of right now. We have sent an additional 48 invitations to our first graders. So all of our first graders who are not at benchmark right now have an invitation in some capacity to summer school, whether it be AmeriCorps or whether it be on-site programming. And we'll see where the numbers lead us there if we have other spots. We're trying to balance out staffing and available spots for students. And so like we've been doing all year, kind of playing that numbers game as that comes in. Our main criteria right now is focused in on literacy. A large portion of our summer school programming for K-8 will be targeted for those literacy skills. We're also looking at adding some math programming as well. And we are looking through the data that is coming in for the students that we have sent invitations to decide what that programming exactly will look like in the area of math. Did I answer? I think you had one other question. I can't remember.
Well, I guess so you did answer in terms of that the students were invited based on whether or not they were meeting the benchmarks, if I heard you correctly. So is proficiency the standard? You're inviting all students who have not reached proficiency in literacy and potentially math. Is that right?
We are inviting literacy as the criteria. We did not send out an invitation to every student who did not meet criteria or benchmark because of the staffing. We're working through the balance of what that looks like. So we had AmeriCorps, which is serving certain criteria because that programming lends itself to that criteria. And then we have another, our most significant need are the students that are the most discrepant in the area of literacy, had the first round of invitations. And then we added the other 48 first graders. So any first grader who did not meet benchmark has an invitation. And then we're working through the other grade levels.
Couple of things. We actually have this on as an agenda item for tomorrow. We have gotten information from some other districts on how they are kind of doing some work around recruitment of teachers, because we all were in the same boat, not having many teachers that wanted to participate this year in summer school. And understandably so, but and then also how we can increase our numbers. So incentivizing some teacher, maybe through teacher pay or through a bonus or something, looking at how we can work with the union on doing an MOU so that we can get more students able to come. And then really defining what our criteria looks like. So that was one of the things we talked a little bit about today, and added it as a discussion point for tomorrow to make sure we can get as many as we can, serving as many as we can. We've also seen a decline in the number of families who want to participate this summer. So for whatever reason, we're not sure, but that's across all districts. They're experiencing the same thing. So a little bit of a balancing act on getting teachers and getting students or families who want to participate.
And just one final point of clarity, then there'll be no voluntary summer school options out there, right? For parents who would just want to send their kids to do something or go, whatever. The summer school options are only by invitation this year. Is that right?
This year, yes.
Just one final clarifying question on the summer school topic. You mentioned that the high school would be for credit recovery. So can we assume that students who need the credit recovery for second semester would then be invited as well? Is there like an enrollment period then for students who may need credit recovery after second semester?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Then I also wanted to ask a question about the remote campus. I've had a few people ask me, and I'm curious as well. What will remote campus at the secondary level? Do we know what will remote campus at the secondary level look like next year in terms of course offerings or structure? Will it be similar to this year? Is it going to be strictly edgenuity? Do we have a sense of what that is going to look like?
We do. There's information in the registration that went out today that will outline the courses that we'll offer in our remote campus at the high school. There's a combination of edgenuity and potentially the Google Classroom setup that we have used this year. Some of that will be dependent on enrollment numbers as those come in, and how we balance staffing and enrollment as those pieces come in. The remote campus task force is starting to meet to work through, to continue to work through those logistics there. But there's a lot of information in the registration that I think will answer several of those questions.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was just curious. So I know you said that decisions will be kind of made based on enrollment numbers. So if students who are interested in remote campus are registering, or they're having to put in their course choices for next year, do we know when they would hear? And is there any option then, if they end up finding out that they would only be, after all, in edgenuity classes, would it be too late at that point for them to make a different decision?
Let me answer that. I think for families, okay, we are trying to balance staffing and an online model. So I think for families, they should try to think in terms of, this is an online program, and the majority of the courses are going to be delivered through our online platform. So think edgenuity. I think it would be safer to go that route, because we don't want to have our teachers teaching in two modes. That's not a goal of ours. So our goal is to really be able to have our in-person teachers teaching in person, and our remote campus, their education being provided in that remote learning environment, with the exception of courses that are only going to be offered on site. And we've identified what courses those are. And so I think for families, if you're trying to make a decision between in-person or online, be thinking online means a platform such as Edgenuity. So that is the platform that we use as a district. And so I would be, there may be a chance that there's students that if we have a teacher who has a free period, that teacher could be teaching remotely, depending on what class sizes look like. So, we have to balance the in-person and the external with our remote campus. So if we had teachers that had really small class sizes, and we were able to work the schedule so that that teacher maybe had a free period to teach online, that's what we would be doing. Otherwise, I think it would be safe for them to think in terms of edgenuity for the most part. Might there be an exception here and there? Absolutely. But for the most part, I would be thinking in terms of that if parents are trying to make a decision.
Thanks. That's helpful. So then you're saying that it's unlikely that there would be, or it would be rare that there would be a situation where there might be a teacher that was teaching both in person and remotely, that mostly it would be teachers would be teaching in person, or they would be serving as that sort of facilitator for the Edgenuity classes. Am I understanding that right?
No, I just want to make sure. You might be saying the same thing I am, just differently. I'm not saying that we would have the staffing that at secondary, a teacher would be teaching 100% remote or 100% in person. We don't have that kind of staffing. What I'm saying is that we would be trying to provide a period that those teachers would be teaching remotely versus a combination in the same period. Does that make, is that what you're saying too?
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
what I'm saying. I'm assuming that that you're still talking about Edgenuity though. So if they're teaching remote,
Correct.
that would be really managing an Edgenuity platform section, correct?
I'd have to defer to Christy.
And I think that is where I think what Superintendent Reisner said is a really good way to think about whether you want to enroll in remote campus or not. As enrollment numbers come in and we're balancing staffing, we may be able to have numbers where teachers are teaching and not using an Edgenuity platform, but we may not because we're balancing that staffing, like Superintendent Reisner is saying. So I think it's wise to think about it through, because at this time, the bulk of what we're thinking through will be Edgenuity.
Yeah, and so if there is a situation where a teacher's schedule is full, and we would be that would be then we would not be looking to combine the model. So in other words, making the teacher teach in person and remote in the same period. And so that we won't be doing. We want to be able to say to our students, then in that case, you'll be using Edgenuity, because we want to protect our teachers, in that environment and not have them being stressed with teaching of both. Now, that being said, we are going to maximize our schedule because, of course, you would expect us to do that. And so that means that, we're not going to have classes of 6 or 7 or 10 kids. We would be looking to have an efficient schedule that had classes at a normal class size. And then if that meant that the teacher's day allowed for a period that they could teach online, then that would be something we would look at.
And is this, so I know we said secondary, does this cover middle school as well? Because middle school doesn't have Edgenuity now, right? Will they be having that for next?
We're looking at that programming for the middle school as well, for the reasons that Superintendent Reisner just said.
And what's really important about that is, as we are beginning an online program, so when we're back into fully, everybody has the choice to come 100%, or they have this remote option. We just simply don't have the staffing to be able to do either or. And so what we're trying to do is still offer our families this option, because we know that that's worked really well for some of our families. And so we want to still be able to respect and honor whatever works best for our families, but yet we still have to really deal with that staffing. And so in an online program, you can kind of think, okay, we're going to have to maximize a platform such as Edgenuity. Now, maybe down the road, I don't want to close the door on, we would be able to offer a remote campus that had our own instructors eventually down the road, but that would be if our numbers grew and we were to a point where we could staff that funding wise and staff our in-person program. Does that help, Director Colton?
Yes, it does. I think at the time when we talked about this, it was it was kind of the task force was still working on it, on kind of ironing that out. So I just wasn't sure that. So yes, thank you.
And they may still be ironing it out, but some of the big rocks for me are making sure we're protecting our teachers and valuing their time and their time in person and their remote time, and and then also making sure that we're honest in our message that, be prepared for Edgenuity to cover a bulk of the classes at this point.
Have you considered?
So I'm a little, oh, sorry.
Go ahead,
Michelle.
Ellen. Go ahead, I'll ask after.
So I'm a bit confused because one thing sounds a little bit different than what we had heard in the committee meeting, and maybe it's been changed by the task force, is will teachers then will any teachers at secondary need to teach hybrid? So where they are actually teaching students in person and delivering content themselves to remote students?
And so that we may be saying it differently. And so I'm saying that could happen, but it would happen through an open period that a teacher would have.
So the teachers would have one open period to prepare a second round of content for a different delivery method? I'm just trying to understand, will secondary still have a hybrid type model in some courses or not?
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. If I could offer a suggestion, I think that imagine it like this. First period, I teach English 9. Second period, I teach English 9. Third period, I teach creative writing to a group of online students. Fourth period, I teach English 9 again, and all those English 9 sections are on campus. Is that correct, Superintendent Reisner?
Yep. Yep. Or I teach English 9 in person first period, English 9 virtually second period, third period, English 9 in person, fourth period, I have a prep.
So do we have a maximum number of preps that our teachers at the secondary level would have? So I know that's an education term, but even to your
I know what you mean.
Example, Dr. Hawkins, if someone teaches English 9, 3 sections of it, that's 3 different sections, but it's one prep. But then the creative writing class, that's a second prep. So is the remote course and the face-to-face course considered 1 or 2 preps?
I don't know that we're that deep into the planning at this stage, to be frank with you. And to answer your question, Director Jansen, my experience as a secondary master scheduler is a lot of times in our core courses, we can limit teachers to 2 to 3 preps during a year. I'm going to teach Algebra 2 and Geometry. I find oftentimes that like our art teachers or some of our sometimes our modern language teachers end up having more preps. There's just trade-offs in different areas within the secondary world. And so to say, oh, all of our teachers are only going to have X or Y number of preps, at least that's never how it worked for my ability to master schedule at the high school. But I could get that information from our high school principals if desired.
I'm not desiring, I just was curious if to your example, an English 9 class in person and an English 9 class remote would be considered 2 different courses, or if it would be considered the same course. That's all I wondered.
Again, I'm not the master scheduler to the high school, so I'm trying not to make a commitment for them. To me, I think our teachers would tell you it feels like 2 different classes. I think if we're able to make it 2 different classes so that people feel like they have prep time for both, that would be ideal. But again, that will come down to how many kids sign up, how many sections do we need, how many teachers do we need to assign it to, so on and so forth. But ideally, we would try to make that 2 preps because I think our teachers are going to feel like those are 2 different things that they're teaching.
Delivery models. Okay, thank you.
Michelle, you had a question, I think, or Director Linkaitis, sorry.
So you mentioned early on about courses that can't be offered through Edgenuity, maybe because they're unique to our high school, or they're at a level that's not maybe offered by an online format like Edgenuity. And if you had, and sometimes those classes aren't very large because they're more specialized, maybe. In that situation, would you be able to offer 2 different class periods, 1 remote and 1 virtual? Or if that's not a possibility, would, in those situations, teachers have to teach them concurrently?
So the courses I'm not in the weeds in this, so I may not know all the answers, but the courses I'm speaking about would be some of the courses that are hands-on, that can only be done on site.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you. So alternatively, would kids who want to take those classes but would prefer to be remote be permitted to come to school to take those classes?
Yes, that's the way we have it right now.
Christy, I know in the teaching and learning committee, and I just thought of this question, sorry. We had talked about once the task force got going, you might start to get some feedback from teachers on basically numbers of teachers that might be interested in teaching in this model. Have you started to get any of that information back or got a reception from whether there's staff that, basically do we have the staff numbers that want to do this, that would support this, or do we have any read on that yet?
We've just sent out that interest, and so I don't have, it's still open for teachers to continue to give us some feedback in that area. It would be too early, I think, to really give a solid answer on that.
Okay, yeah, and I'm just interested, obviously, as we talked about in the teaching and learning committee, but I realized, we had a really extensive discussion of an hour and a half or so, and I think the board missed a lot of that discussion. So I know we talked about there that, as Superintendent Reisner said earlier, we've had teachers do a lot of hard work this year, and I could see some of them really not wanting to do a hybrid type model, even if they do have the preps. So I'm just really interested to know what that is, because I want to definitely make sure we protect our teachers, as we said, and make sure we take care of them, especially coming out of such a stressful year. So thank you.
I think we're all on the same page there.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, we will open it up to any public comments on our board committee updates. If you have a comment on our board committee updates, please raise your hand and we will give you permission to speak. Okay, seeing none, I will go ahead and open our public forum. And if you would like to speak as part of our public forum, again, you may raise your hand and we will give you permission to speak. All right, seeing none, I will go ahead and close our public forum and we will move on to our consent items, and I will entertain a motion.
I move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Linkaitis. Superintendent Reisner.
We just had a meeting, so there are no.
Oh, there are no gifts from the district. I'm sorry.
It's okay, no problem.
All right, moved by Perez, seconded by Linkaitis. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Moving on to our action items, and first is our policies for action.
I move we approve the policies as presented.
Second.
Moved by Bankin, seconded by Perez. Discussion.
Just
Thank
wanted
you for the policy committee for going back and doing this. Sorry, I'll let Superintendent Reisner speak in a second, but thank you to all the work you did. And sorry.
No,
that
go
made
ahead.
that
Sorry, I didn't see that you unmuted. I apologize. I just wanted to update. I don't know if you have any other questions as a board on any of the other items, but I did want to update you on the student directory information. what we had a lengthy conversations around this and looked at a lot of different resources. And what we are bringing back is cleaned up a little bit. And the change, if you can scroll down a little bit, whoever's running I don't know if it's Eric. We are changing the date of birth to just year of birth. And that should take care of the concerns that were brought up by the board at the last meeting. And then we are able to still provide resources and opportunities for students by age, but not necessarily put on their birth dates.
Thank you for that. I thought that was a valid concern that was brought up.
Mm-hmm. Boy, it seems like we did a lot more work than that, but that's what it boiled down to. It seems, Director Franson, doesn't it seem like we had a lot more?
It was a long discussion.
It was a very detailed conversation. So
Yes.
we weighed lots of pros and cons on it. So.
All right. Any other comments from the board or questions? It was moved by Bankin, seconded by Perez. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. New Ames High construction project change orders.
I move the board approve the change orders for the new Ames High School project construction project as presented.
Second.
Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Colton. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Sorry. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Items from the board.
I have one. I don't know if you wanted to talk about requests for staff first, Sabrina, but I don't think there were any tonight. So
Yes, I didn't have any requests for staff tonight. Did I miss any, Superintendent Reisner?
No.
Okay. Go ahead, Alan.
all right. I'd been kind of sitting and thinking because I'm still working from home. So I continue to be amazed by our teachers, and I know we've asked so much from them. I already thought that we had some of the best teachers in the state, but I continue to be floored with some of the stories we're hearing about teachers going above and beyond in some pretty difficult circumstances. So I've been thinking about some way or something we could think of as a board to show our appreciation to all the teachers. And I noticed the first week of May is Teacher Appreciation Week. I think the board should do something that week to show our teachers how much we fully support and appreciate everything they do pretty directly, maybe more so than we have in the last few years. So kind of the question I have is, what do board members think about this? And secondarily, would a couple of other members maybe be interested in working with me to come up with some ideas of what we could do as a board to directly show our appreciation of the teachers? My thought being that maybe we could brainstorm a few ideas and then share them out with the entire board to see about getting some people involved in something. I've seen other districts around the country that have done this at different times, did some searches around for it. I just think especially this year, it would be a good thing to do.
I
You
love
mean like
that idea.
I get a car, you get a car, you get a car sort of thing, Alan? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I'm going to comment before the Ames Trib writes this up. We are not giving every teacher in the
You
district
get
a car.
You get a car.
That
I'm
is
in.
not part of the ESSER money approved use. I am very sure of this.
I'm in. Come in. I'd like it.
I'd like to help
It's
too.
awesome.
I would love to help as well. That's a great idea. And honestly, I was
Okay.
going to say the exact same thing about supporting our teachers and the thanks that we should give.
Okay, I'll follow up with everybody offline and we'll see what we can come up with there. I've already got a few ideas, but no, I did not come up with the idea of a car. I give Jeanette that one. That was beyond the realm of my thinking. So way to go. But yeah, I think anything we can do to help support the teachers right now and show appreciation for them. I mean, especially I was thinking even like first year teachers, imagine coming into this your first year, you know, like we need to make sure they understand how much we appreciate that and all the work they've done. Thank you.
Absolutely. I agree. And it sounds like you might have there might be some competition over who gets to participate, since we have to keep it to 3 members. So we will figure that out. But yeah, I think it sounds like a great idea.
We'll arm wrestle for it or something similar. We'll figure it out.
Any other items?
I'd like to request that we have a discussion at an upcoming board meeting about priority 3, which is our recruitment, retention, and development of staff, and what our efforts are to reach that priority.
Thank you. And I will note that down.
And if you need a second, I'll second that request.
Is there specifics? Do you want the action plan for that one? Or are there data points, or kind of all of it?
I'm interested in all of it.
Okay.
It may be a topic for a work session. So that can
That's
be
what I'm wondering. It might be a broader topic than just at a discussion item.
Yep.
So we can put it on the,
talk about that.
yep,
Does that live in a committee?
it does not.
Okay. Other items from the board? All right, items from the superintendent.
I do not have any tonight.
All right. And that leaves us with our board planning calendar. And I don't think, I'm trying to look. I know we don't have a meeting next week.
And I'm wondering when our next work session is, because we could put this on our next work session. I don't see it on there. Could somebody pull up the board planning calendar?
I have it up on my computer, but I can't.
We just got it up on the
Thank you. Okay, there we go. Yeah, is it June 8th? Is that what I'm seeing? Because is that May 3rd crossed?
Oh, that could actually work really well. Oh, I think JD just texted me with retreat is the next work session.
Okay, can we add a work session? Or we can discuss that, I think, since it's not on the agenda.
Yeah, we could talk about it. That might actually be a really good time, though, to do it on the, if there's Director Franson and Director Colton, would that be acceptable to wait until that June is right around the corner? Would that be acceptable to wait and do it as part of that work session in the board retreat?
Well, is there a reason May 3rd work session is crossed out? I see a couple here crossed out.
Why do I not see May 3rd?
Well, it was under work session. It's like there was one, but it's crossed out.
I don't know why.
Okay.
I mean, maybe we could figure that out. Or I trust board leadership to maybe work through that and decide.
Yeah.
Okay. We will do that. All right. Any other items on the board planning calendar? Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Lankaitis. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. All right, passes 7-0. Thank you, everyone, and have a
Bye,
good.
everybody.
Bye.
One thing, I look forward to seeing everybody in person the next time we come together. Less little boxes,
Yes.
more smiley faces.